Hey everybody, it's Tim Hinton, the Beast of the Marching Arts, and look who I'm here with, Paul Beyer. Paul, how are you?
I'm great, Tim. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you for being here to talk about this today. So, Paul is the guest on the podcast that came out today, and I thought this was such a cool conversation that we would promote it here. So, if you're watching this, let people know that the podcast is there, and also about Paul's new book. So, Paul, you had started posting about your new book, and I thought it was pretty cool, and so that's why we talked about it. So, tell us about your book.
Well, it's called Drumline Gold, Innovative Systems for Marching Percussion Excellence. And it came out about a couple weeks ago. And it features 16 systems that I brainstormed, basically things that we are all involved with and have to manage in the drumline experience, like leading and building a culture, practicing, rehearsing, arranging, competing, staffing, self-caring, tuning. There's a whole chapter on tuning your drums as well. And then not wanting to be the sole author on something this important, I decided, why not? Why don't I start reaching out to my friends and colleagues in the marching percussive world?
And everybody, this is the real stroke of genius here, right? Not that Paul isn't great and that his information is fantastic, but he went to, like, you didn't just like ask some random people, like you went to the top, the very best marching percussion people. And as you guys heard already, he said these topics are not just percussion related. Like these are topics that anybody can learn from. So you reached out to all of these super smart percussion educators, arrangers, designers, etc. And a lot of them said yes.
Yeah, I have 23 contributors in all in the book, including Tom Ungst and Bill Bachman, Dennis DeLucia, Julie Davila, Neil Flum, Tom Hannum, Lamont Lawhorn, my entire staff and colleagues from Clemson University, my drumline instructor, Lance Curry, Elliot Cleveland, who is with Marching Health. And I just wanted to do a really ambitious project since this is my fourth book. And I just sent them an email and said, would you like to be involved with this book? Would you like to answer some questions? And 23 said yes, and it started coming together. And that is the gold really in the book, is their content, responses, stories, lessons, mindsets, you name it.
Right. So everybody, we're talking about Drumline Gold, which is the new book that Paul Beyer, who's my guest here, has out right now. And he is on the podcast that's out right now at the Marching Roundtable. So Paul, we talk about a lot of stuff about the book extensively in the podcast. So I hope everybody will listen to that. Of course, you can hear that on iTunes or just go to marchingroundtable.com. So you reached out to all these really smart top people. They sent back all these responses, and then you had to figure out what not to use, right? That would be the hard part.
I did. Well, one of my strategies for writing anything, books or articles, is to write more than I need and then to trim it down and trim the fat and get rid of the fluff. So that's kind of my approach anyway. But I had so much great content at first when I sent the manuscript in to Garwood Whaley with Meredith Music. He said, Paul, it's great, but there's just way too much content here and you're going to have to cut it down. And that was a really difficult challenge. But I did so with a lot of painstaking proofing and reading. And I think what's left is really the best content from all the contributors.
So on each chapter, you talk about a topic, like you said, leadership or rehearsal techniques or whatever. And then you include some of these tips from these superstars in our activity, these super game changers, as you call them, which I think is a really good term. You include those at the end of each chapter. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So there are 4 questions in each chapter, and there are 3 contributors answering each of those questions. So I guess that's about 12 answers per chapter. There are 16 chapters representing the systems, and it's just jam-packed, and there's a lot of balance among the chapters and content on listening and reading and arranging and culture building and self-care and really every possible system that we are involved with in the marching percussion activity.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I mean, I'm not a drum guy. I mean, I'm a drum enthusiast, but I'm not a drum guy. But as a show designer, as a band director, as all those other roles that we take on, all this stuff, I want to hear what these really smart people have to say about all this stuff. So if you're watching this, certainly go listen to the podcast, and there's a link to his book where you can purchase it there on at the Marching Roundtable where the podcast is located. But how could you not want your drum staff at least to have this? I know you were thinking maybe even the students or your staff or band directors. I think everybody can learn from this, but like at the least, I'm buying a copy for my drum guy. You know what I mean, or my drum girl.
Absolutely. It's a resource for the educators, I think, first and foremost, but it does apply to those performing in a drum line just as much. And there's so many passionate kids that are involved in this activity with DCI, WGI, college, high school, the sports drum lines. Initially, I wanted to ask NFL and NBA drumline instructors to contribute. I kind of had to stop at a certain point.
By the way, there are some podcasts with some of those NFL drum lines at the Marching Roundtable. Those were such fun conversations. Like they're talking about, yeah, our team won the Super Bowl. We went back and we played them off the bus when they came to the hotel. Like they're great stories. That's looks really fun. Yeah. So anyway, that's a little aside. If you haven't seen those, go to the Marching Roundtable and just put like NFL or football in there, and they'll pop up. But anyway, so you couldn't talk to everybody, or I guess there's another book in King's.
I'm sorry, Tim. Can you repeat that? You froze up.
I said, does that mean that perhaps there's another book in your future based on some of these other things?
Well, there's always another book because I love doing it. I can't tell you right now what the topic would be, but it's one of the most thrilling and satisfying projects I've ever done in my life is to write books and to get that box on your doorstep with the finished product. There's nothing like it.
So if you're watching this right now, make sure everybody finds out about the podcast, and hopefully we'll go check out this book. Write some comments in right now. We'd love to hear from you. What do you think about all this? Are you interested in it? Do you have any questions for Paul while we're on this Facebook Live right now? And Paul, what's been the response?
I've really been blown away so far. The contributors got their book, I'd say 7-10 days ago, and they're reading it. They were reading it a little bit the first week it came out, and Dennis DeLucia just did a wonderful testimonial video that he sent me yesterday. I was just humbled and blown away. Bill Bachman, Tom Ungst, they're all getting back to me. They're in the process of finishing it, I think, right now, and I'm wondering, okay, what did they think? What did the contributors think? They believe in me. They believe in the book. They know me well enough to know that it's going to be a really high quality product, but they don't know how it turned out. They do now. And, but it's been really, really positive. And my staff at Clemson has always been, also been really great so far with the book.
Well, and you told me that a lot of these contributors, and these are big names, everybody, that they're letting like, I'm enjoying hearing from everybody else. You know what I mean? Like they all want to keep learning. This is what all the top people in our activity, every time I talk to them, this is the same message. They don't think they know everything. They're always ready to learn more, learn from all their colleagues that they respect. So I think it's cool that you sort of hold all that information, all that knowledge, and then they get to learn from each other through the project.
Yeah, and that's what makes them excellent educators, I think, Tim, is they are lifelong learners and they want to know what everybody else has to say about the same topics. And as I said on the podcast, I was kind of selfish in that I wanted to know what they had to say about all of these systems and how they approach teaching their drum lines, and make sure we were on track and have been on track at Clemson, because we've been in the spotlight for a long time with the football team and Tiger Band and national television and national championships. And, we're trying to put a really high standard, high quality product out there in our college drum line. And this has certainly helped us.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, thanks for doing the hard work to put the book together, write the book, conglomerate. That's not a word. Put all these great comments and information together. I can't wait to read it myself. I think it's really cool. Thanks for being on the podcast with me, everybody. Right now at the Marching Roundtable, the podcast is out right now. It's about Drumline Gold. This book. There's a link there where you can go and buy the book. And Paul, I think it's awesome, man. Thank you for being one of the helpers. I always like to highlight people that are doing something to help other people do better, and you've certainly done that here.
Thanks, Tim. That's really been the mission behind the book, is to provide a resource to help drumlines get better, reach their potential, achieve excellence, help educators improve, help the students stay with this activity as long as possible, and really branch out into the rest of the percussive arts as well. And there's not a lot of books on drumline, on marching percussion. specifically, and I think this is really a one-of-a-kind go-to resource that it can really have an impact on the activity in the marching arts.
Awesome. So everybody, Drumline Gold, it's a podcast out right now. There's a link there to the book. Paul, you're doing great work. Thank you for doing this and creating more great information in book form for our activity. So thanks so much for talking to me today.
Thanks, Tim. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks everybody for watching. If you're watching this and you think this is helpful, let somebody that you know about the book and the podcast. Thanks, Paul.